Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Issues and Updates on September 12, 2023. Anyone listening, there's a little noise going on in the hallway that will be remedied soon, so please ignore it. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's the first item today?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner West is online today, so he is on Zoom. He is present, and the other commissioners are in the room. We're going to start with the item for the City of Canby because we have guests from the City of Canby present. So this is City of Canby use of sequential review for urban growth boundary process. Dan Johnson, the Director of Transportation and Development, will present. And in the audience is the City Manager, Eileen Stein of the City of Canby, and Don Hardy, the Planning Director of the City of Canby, happy to answer your questions. There's a memo in your packet. Dan, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, we are here, good morning. We are here to talk about the request from the City of Canby to use the sequential review for an urban growth boundary expansion. This is not new to you. The board just authorized this process for the city of Molalla here recently, and essentially this is an alternative to, if you hearken back to that discussion, cities that aren't incorporated in the Tri-County area basically have control of their own UGB, and that urban growth boundary is there to establish a 20-year land supply of developable land for these various cities. The city has determined that they don't have enough land, and so they're looking to have a discussion and an analysis about an expansion. The sequential process essentially is a more cost-effective and inclusive way for the city to do this process, allowing them to do a step-by-step analysis of the analysis required to expand the UGB, rather than doing all the analysis and submitting it to the state and not being able to identify concerns from the citizens during that process, but basically leaving all those discussions till the end. This is an easier process for them and the citizenry of the City of Canby. There are, basically to do this process, you can see as a part of your materials, there's a requirement for not only the city, but the county representatives to authorize this process. And essentially that's what we're asking you today, Board of County Commissioners, is authorization to sign that form allowing the city to advance through the sequential UGB expansion process. As Gary stated, we have representatives from the City of Canby who are here to answer any specific questions you might have, and we can call them up if you like, or answer any questions at this point in time.
Does anyone from the City of Canby wish to come forward at this time, or would you, you don't have to, you can wait for commissioners' comments on this, it's up to you. Commissioners, are there comments on this particular issue?
So I just have a question. Is there pros and cons? Would there be any pushback, resistance, remonstrance for this procedure over another?
I'd ask the City of Canby representatives to come forward because they probably have a better handle on if there's been some concerns raised by citizens.
What?
Planning Director and the City Manager.
The City Manager and the Planning Director, there's somebody over there. Thank you very much. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Don Hardy. I'm the Planning Director for the City of Canby.
Eileen Stein. Go ahead.
And I would just like to cover some of the work plan elements for the sequential UGB. Really for purposes, the state has laid out a process where it allows for a work plan essentially that gives the ability of the city to adopt independently the housing needs analysis and economic opportunities analysis separate and not have to bundle those all into the urban growth boundary expansion packet that goes into the future for an initiation process. That's pretty important for the city in that it gives us the latitude to finish off those items, and it results in less potential for appeal for the city in the future for things that might be dated. And this has become somewhat of a challenge for other jurisdictions in Oregon where they've bundled this later in the process, and it's become part of a larger appeal process for the urban growth boundary expansion. So in essence, for the city, our request is that the work plan be initiated based on state statutes, and the statutes were put into place specifically to allow for those two items, housing needs and economic opportunity analysis, to be adopted, and then the appeals for those to go independently from the urban growth boundary expansion. They specifically, the state put that in because several jurisdictions had fairly challenging processes for urban growth boundary expansions that took a significant amount of time and resources to resolve later. I do think that essentially it is a work plan. I don't see any downside for the county.
I
think-
guess what Commissioner Savas was asking, is there a blowback from any of your citizens, which is my first question?
There's been no really conversation from the public that's been adversarial on the concept of this. This has gone through a resolution process for our city council. There was no public testimony.
And you want to expand your urban growth boundary because?
Because there's a buildable lands analysis that we've done for both economic employment lands and housing. Housing is specific to population projections that are from PSU, which talk about 20-year growth, and we need to do that. It's a mandatory obligation for the city to do that. The employment side of things was from the buildable lands analysis again, and the growth rate was determined based on the last 11 years of growth, and it's a continuation of that. Our industrial area is pretty much depleted, and we're looking for job opportunities in the future.
And I guess I would just add to that.
Would you please introduce yourself?
Yes, Eileen Stein, I'm the interim city administrator for the city of Canby. I would just add to that that this is a high priority goal for the Canby City Council. And so we just appreciate your consideration of this item this morning.
Paul, you have,
I think his explanation laid it out for me, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Savas? Commissioner Schrader, excuse me.
So I do have a question. Do you even have a clue at this time whether you're heading towards the Willamette River or the Malala River? Because that seemed to me to be most of your expansion area.
It largely will be determined on the undesignated lands around the city, and I mean, in large part, there are some opportunities both in the south and east, and also in the northwest portions of the city, based on the 2040 plan that has undesignated lands surrounding the city, which are available for the city to consider in an urban growth boundary expansion. We've not done the exercise yet. We're doing our first community summit September 14th, this Thursday, for the comprehensive plan, which starts that off. So we'll start to get into that analysis next year in terms of where the exact growth will go, but it has not been determined at this point.
Yes, I just want to let you know that I was very concerned it was left undesignated at the time because I was involved in that, and that's some of the best farmland in the world. And what I've been observing as I go into Canby is it is all going towards the Willamette River, which is about 3/4 of Loam. So I'm just assuming that's going to be taken into consideration.
No, absolutely. There's a whole criteria of that, and it's important. I'd say the land, just generally speaking, towards the Willamette River would be more residential and that'd be
Right.
much smaller in area. The employment lands probably largely will be parallel to where they're at now.
Where it is now.
Yeah, which is
would make
towards the
sense.
Malala River, not towards the Willamette.
But it's still farmland, and
no, absolutely.
had it been left undesignated and made rural reserve, it would not be developable right now. Just saying. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes, looks like your city economic opportunity analysis and housing needs assessment identified 447 acres of employment lands and only 50 acres of residential lands. Will the sequential review include all that?
It includes that that's really our starting point, because that's what our buildable lands, yes, it will include that. It's part of the work plan. It was designated, those numbers were identified through our buildable lands analysis. Let me back up a little bit as well. We're also working with the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Both the housing needs analysis and economic opportunity analysis have both been vetted through grants with DLCD as well. So the acreage, that's what the need is, and that's really essentially where we're going in terms of the future. We haven't actually done the exercise, again, back to the other question about where that will actually go.
Okay. And the other question is, how many years into the future will that 50 acres provide your city with required residential?
It's a 20-year forecast based on the PSU population. There's about 6,000 people in 20 years is the forecast, so the 50 acres would cover that.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioners, we considered a similar action from the city of Malala several months ago, which we approved. Any further questions or comments on this time? Gary, what is our action today?
Seek a motion to allow Chair Smith to sign this sequential review letter.
I will accept a motion.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Oh, Ben's
Commissioner
gonna
Scholl
second
has moved that the city of Canby be allowed to apply with a document requiring my signature for their urban growth expansion. Commissioner West has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
it. Aye.
Commissioner West. Aye. Commissioner Scholl,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Good luck to you and Godspeed. This is a very difficult process.
Thank you for your time, and we appreciate your
Thank you.
help.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Gary, what's next?
Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as a Water Environment Services.
This is request for consent agenda for the Water Environment Services Board of Directors. Item 1, approval of a contract with OTAC Incorporated for personal services, including engineering services necessary for the design and construction management of the Upper Kellogg capital improvements. Total contract value is $287,481.58 for 3 years. Funding is through county-allocated ARPA funds and Water Environment Services Surface Water Operating Funds. No county general funds are involved. Ron Waringa, Assistant Director of Water Environment Services. Go ahead.
Great, thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and members of the board. Ron Waringa with Water Environment Services. This is our request for you today is to approve this, to put forward this contract on consent to plan, analyze, start conceptual design, and help us sequence the water quality and drainage projects that we've identified in our storm system master plan in the Upper Kellogg Creek area. This first phase will get us through alternatives analysis and conceptual designs, and then we would intend to come back and amend the contract with a revised scope of work based on the outcome of that work for you at a later date. So your approval of the contract today will help us move these projects along.
Questions or comments?
Yes, Chair. I'm very supportive of this project. It's been a long time coming. So my question is there, when we get to the point in time in which, we put out for contracts, do we have the resources for the ARPA funding? Do we have the resources in entirety to fund the entire project?
Yes, with Commissioner Savas, with the combination of the ARPA funds as well as surface water fees to cover the rest, we have the funding ready and available to make these projects happen when it comes to construction.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for taking action on this.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, authorization for the chair to provide written consent to representation by the Office of County Counsel in a lawsuit filed by Trevor Wisham. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. County Counsel for Water Environment Services, Stephen McCourt, go ahead.
Thank you, Gary. Morning, Commissioners. This is the first of 2 requests to the governing body of both the county and West to get your consent to have the Office of County Counsel defend both West and the county in a lawsuit brought by Mr. Weissman. This is required by the rules of professional conduct. This is a revisit of our conversation we had with you during executive session a couple weeks ago. We ask that it be on your consent agenda for this week. Any questions? Happy to try to answer them.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Chair, would you please convene as the Development Agency Board of Directors?
I will recess as Water Environment Services and convene as a development agency.
This is request for consent agenda for the Development Agency Board of Directors. Item 1, approval of a resolution amending the Clackamas Industrial Area Development Plan. No fiscal impact, no county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. This is I'm going to make sure we're clear about this because last week we had a discussion, or actually a public hearing on a major amendment in the industrial area. This is a minor amendment. They have separate processes they have to go through, okay? This is simply an amendment to that plan to better redefine those uses that we can liquidate property to and for. That's all it is. There's no financial impact. There's nothing. It's basically just discussion with county council and the necessity to kind of clarify that within the plan document itself. You'll see, if you look at the attachments, it's a simple addition of the bold language that you see there that basically says distribution of property, such uses may be commercial, industrial, residential, or public in nature. And then it emphasizes the fact that all redevelopment must be consistent with county comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance.
Questions or comments regarding this? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as a development agency and reconvene as a Board of County Commissioners.
Next are requests for consent agenda for the Clackamas Board of County Commissioners. First, elected officials, the District Attorney's Office. Item 1, approval to apply for a grant for child abuse multidisciplinary intervention program services through the Oregon Department of Justice. The grant award is $1,146,209. plus carryover fund balance of $15,949. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Justice. No county general funds are involved. Scott Healy from the District Attorney's Office. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith, members of the commission. My name is Scott Healy. I am the First Assistant District Attorney here in Clackamas County. You know that. You've all met me before. I'm also the chair of the MDT, which is the Multidisciplinary Team for Child Abuse here in Clackamas County, and the important work we do there. This is a 2-year grant that we've been asking for probably close to 20 years. It's really sort of pro forma, but the monies, which we always, fortunately, are receiving a little bit more each time, are very important to the work that we do with the multidisciplinary team. Probably about, I haven't really done the breakdown, about 85 to 90% of the money goes to our child abuse children's center, which is very important for the important work they do there, supporting children that have been either sexually abused, physically abused, or neglected in some way. We also pay for an MDT coordinator, and we also pay for training. We have our MDT Day actually coming up on October 26th, where we have significant training, and so that helps us, pay for all these things. I really don't, we're just asking to apply for the funds right now. I really don't have anything else unless you have any questions for me. Certainly I'll come back once we receive the funds.
Yes, you've always done this. I've always appreciated this very much. Who is the oversight of this grant? Is that you?
Yeah, so statutorily, each county is required to have an MDT, and the DA's office, and they put us basically in charge of everything because we're the center of the criminal justice system. So yes, ultimately the district attorney's office, and ultimately it would be John Wentworth, making a final decision about where we spend funds. Obviously, I actually do most of that work, and then I confer with Mr. Wentworth.
Well, it's a very good program. It's very much appreciated. Other comments from commissioners? Seeing no objections, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, County Council. Item 1, authorization for the chair to provide written consent to representation by the Office of County Council in a lawsuit filed by Trevor Wisham. No fiscal impact. No county general funds are involved. The County Council representing Clackamas County, Mr. Stephen Madcore.
Thanks again, Gary. Good morning again, Commissioners. This is a parallel consent to the one we talked about earlier with Wes. This would be for County Council to represent the county in the litigation brought by Mr. Wisman. Again, we ask that to be put up in your consent agenda for Thursday for approval.
Any further questions? This is similar to the previous item. Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of an amendment to a grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation to provide funding for the Sunrise Gateway Corridor Visioning Project Services. Grant value remains at $4 million. Funding through the Oregon Department of Transportation Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
I think I'm getting my steps in today. Thank you so much. Just quickly, hey, this is the Sunrise project, and essentially there are 2 amendments to this grant. One amendment is essentially removing some sub-recipient award requirements because it doesn't qualify for that. It's not applicable for basically some of the auditing purposes. And secondly, it adds the ability for the county to recover administrative costs within the contract itself. And you can see that language within the amendment. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments for the presenter? Commissioner Scholl?
Mr. Johnson, to recover administrative costs, could you explain that for us?
Yeah, so if you look at the amendment itself, Section 6, Item P basically identifies the fact that the recipient may use a negotiated indirect cost rate or an approved cost allocation plan to recover administrative costs in administering the grant. If the recipient does not have a negotiated rate or approved cost allocation plan, it allows for the federal rate of 10%. And those rates and those costs would essentially be overhead costs that we have in administering it. So if we have costs for some of the financial work we do to move money around to pay bills, things like that, that we can recover those costs as a part of this grant.
And Jacobs Engineering that has this contract, there's no problem with this?
It's not there, it's not there, it's our costs.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
okay.
our costs and our ability to recoup our overhead costs.
Understood.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, Dan, what year was it that the Sunrise concept was first?
Oh, my gosh.
It was in the 80s, I believe.
Wow.
PD, pre-Dan. I don't know. 29 and a half years, dear, it was probably, before
Yes,
me.
it was early 1980s.
Early 1980s, so I just wanted to say that we're at that 40-year mark, actually, for launching. And what was at one time a complete project from I-205 to Highway 26, but
Right.
it's been broken up into sections. But hopefully the sun will rise on this project.
Yes.
Well said.
Great turn of a phrase, Commissioner Savas. It's not lost on any of us. Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a weatherization services contract with Builder Services Group for weatherization major measures. Contract value is $1,050,000 for 1 year and 9 months. Funding is through the Oregon Housing and Community Services Grant. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Housing, Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know if Dan heard that. Good morning, Commissioners. The weatherization program preserves the livability of homes, improves the health and safety of home environments, lowers energy burdens and cost, and keeps the residents stably housed. The contract is based on the actual use and cost. When a need arises, the cost is deducted from the contract's overall value with that specific vendor as a task order. So basically, that's why you see the large amount, but it's an as-used basis.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the City of Milwaukee for ADA ramp and sidewalk improvements. The agreement value is $145,000 for 1 year. Funding is through Federal Community Development Block Grant. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this is a project that was part of last year's board-approved CDBG proposal, and is to make ADA ramp and sidewalk improvements in the City of Milwaukee, which is for our disabled residents and assures ADA compliance.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 3, approval of a subrecipient agreement with TriMet for statewide transportation improvement funds. Total value is $5,694,843 for 2 years. Funding is through statewide transportation improvement funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, statewide transportation improvement funds, also known as STIF, are meant to support public transportation programs, including creation, maintenance, and local planning, aiming to prioritize improvement or expansion services, but not to replace local funding, other local funding sources. With this agreement, through the 2 STIF-funded Mount Hood Express runs, we'll be able to deliver 9,000 rides.
Wow. Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 4, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the City of Gladstone for services provided to older adults at the Gladstone Community Center. Agreement value is $59,613 for 1 year. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act and state transportation funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, you heard several of these last week, so this is with the City of Gladstone. The agreement includes services such as congregate and home-delivered meals, health promotion activities, transportation, and information and referral services, helping them meet their individual needs and remain independent and active in the community. Last year, the 22-23 fiscal year, Gladstone Community Center prepared and served over 15,000 meals to seniors and disabled adults, delivering most of those meals to homebound older adults in the City of Gladstone.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 5, approval of a subrecipient agreement with the City of Sandy for services provided to older adults at the Sandy Senior and Community Center. Agreement value is $100,605 for 1 year. Funding is through the Federal Older Americans Act, State Energy Assistance Funds, and State Transportation Funds for older and disabled residents. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, similar to the previous item, the Sandy Senior and Community Center has provided nutrition, transportation, wellness, recreation, and information support for Sandy's older adult community since 1974. They served over 10,000 meals to seniors and disabled adults last year.
Questions or comments?
Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Shaw.
Mr. Cook, I just want to say how important these programs are. We have so many seniors who are living very close to the poverty line throughout, especially East County where I live. And you'd be surprised how many people at the end of the month tell me they're down to a few coins in their purse to pay for their monthly expenses. So thanks again for everything you do for our senior and disabled citizens.
Well, thank you for your leadership in this area.
You bet. Seeing no objections. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the request for consent agenda. All of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your action. Next, board business meeting review, agenda review for this Thursday, September 14th, 2023. It is an evening business meeting at 6 p.m. You'll have all the consent agenda items you discussed today. That is the agenda and plus the regular
And there's
business.
no special hearings or anything?
No hearings, no public hearings, no discussion items.
Okay,
If you have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday. We've sped right through this. That's the last topic except for Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Communications, Commissioner Scholl, would you like to go first?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. I'd like to share with you a meeting we had yesterday with the governor's lead on state resources, Jerry Huntington, with the Council on Forest Trust Lands. What's happening is we have 640,000 acres in Oregon divided amongst 15 counties that's managed by ODF. And currently, they're looking at increasing the Habitat Conservation Plan overlay by another 94,000 acres to be about almost 320,000 acres total of that 640,000 acres of ODF managed forest lands that now, if approved by the governor, will be no cut. And when I testified yesterday, and this is based on some input from our county forester, is that the increase of no-cut area in the Habitat Conservation Plan is really not conducive to nurturing these endangered species that the federal government has determined that these overlays protect. One example of this is that on 24 August, we had a lightning strike in the Bull Run in a stand of timber that has not seen a chainsaw in over 109 years. And that habitat is gone now. Mm-hmm. Okay. Had we had active forest management in there, what would have been the results? Most likely, fighting that fire would have been much easier and much less costly, and the habitat might have been preserved for wildlife. So anyway, Clackamas County, we have a very small percent of our forest lands that are managed by ODF, whereas some of our sister counties have a couple 100,000 acres.
Right.
Okay? So this is a real big thing to them because we need to work together as a Forest Trust Land Council to protect our fellow counties' abilities to sustain harvest at a rate that will keep our mills working and our people employed in forest products jobs. So this is a continuing battle. It's not over yet, but that's the result of yesterday's meeting. And it looks like ODF is going to bully us and go through with increasing the area that's currently protected by the Habitat Conservation Plan.
You know, thank you for that report. This has been an ongoing issue, not just with this plan, but keeping people out of the forest. And Mark, I really appreciate you being at the table representing Clackamas County on this. The Bull Run fire that you alluded to has 560 people fighting that fire, and it's still only, I don't know, 30% contained maybe. And that's going to be ongoing, I suspect and fear, until the winter comes in and totally douses it, because it's very difficult to fight, as is these other lands. And you say if we had been able to go in and manage these forests for mixed use, is what it always has been, you know, ad infinitum on that. But things have changed. I guess people want to see our state burn up. So my question for you is, do you know if the HCA is, or HCP is implemented, is there legal recourse for these counties?
Well, that's one thing that the Council on Forest Trust Lands is working on now.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. One more thing, let me add. You might recall that the federal government had Congress came up with the Secure Rural Schools Act a number of years ago that provided funds for timber towns to keep the lights on, pay for police and fire. The Secure Rural Schools Act runs out on 31 September, okay, the end of this month. And yesterday in the meeting, the question Salem asked was, would you be interested in something similar to compensate you for your loss of more timberland under the HCP? The unanimous response from the counties was, no, that doesn't keep our people employed. That doesn't keep our mills operating, and we're not interested in a handout. We want dignity, self-respect, and jobs.
Thank you for that. I became politically involved in this issue in the late 1980s, and unfortunately the talking points are the same. But thank you for your work on that. Up next, Commissioner Schrader.
Yes, thank you for that. I had an opportunity this weekend with Water and Environment Services to do the Down the River cleanup. We essentially met at Carver Park, got driven to Barton and floated down the river with their raft. It was a great opportunity to get actually updated on a lot of the environmental work that Water and Environment Services is doing with habitat restoration with partners like the Clackamas River Basin Council. And we floated down. It was a beautiful day. And of course, what we would do is pull off to the side, and we would find things that were left by people, the garbage. We found things in the river as well as outside of the river. I think the biggest find was a flip-flop that was in the water. We found a big piece of metal that was there. And then we're finding a lot of cans, things of that sort, and minor pieces of paper. So we're not seeing as much as we used to, but we still do it every year to make sure that the river stays pristine. And it was a great way to spend the afternoon. Also on Saturday, I had an opportunity, that was Sunday. Saturday, I had an opportunity to go to both of the Oregon City markets, farmers markets, as well as the Lake Oswego farmers markets. I want to remind people, as we go into fall, our farmers markets are still available for fresh and delicious food that you can make for your family and your friends. I had an opportunity to buy lots of plum tomatoes that I will be using to roast and make homemade lasagna. And yeah, and you've had some of that, Mark. I know you've had some of that. Homemade lasagna and eggplant parm with that. I'll be kind of starting my canning and all my roasting this week with all the bounty from our farmers markets. So go to them when you have a chance. Our farmers need your support. These are really beautiful markets and a great opportunity to support our local agricultural folks. And finally, I am going to be heading out after our business meeting on Thursday to go down to Klamath Falls, where the Association of Oregon Counties is having its legislative retreat. I'm going because I'm still a member of the National Association of Counties Board, so I'll be giving them an update from the national level, and it's been nice that they have continued to allow me to do that for our state association. So I'm going to be, once again on the road, but I will be here for what's necessary. No worries. We'll actually make
Thank
sure
you very
we're there.
much. Appreciate
Okay.
that.
Thank you.
Appreciate your work on those items as well. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, Chair, I just want to apprise the board of a language change, so to speak, as it relates to ODOT. As you know, an example of that was, in HB 2017, they talked about value pricing, which became a conversation about tolling, which, became a conversation about, congestion pricing. So the verbiage, the nomenclature moves around. So this board has sent and taken positions in correspondence to ODOT and others that we support free lanes and are okay with an express lane model. Well, that express lane, and again, another term that's being used, is now called managed lanes. And one example of managed lanes is an express lane. So on Monday, we're having, I believe, our 10th or 9th Regional Tolling Advisory Committee meeting, and there'll be a presentation on managed lanes as a result of our request to actually have that conversation. ODOT has not wanted to talk about managed lanes, express lanes. They just dismiss it right away. Their way is the only way. So I just want to apprise you, don't want you to be surprised, unless there's a change on the position of the county, whether or not we do support an express lane model, which would, again, have one lane in which people would pay to go in for faster service, and 2 free lanes, for example, on a 3-lane highway. So I will continue to advocate that position, that we support that, but I just want you to know that the nomenclature of managed lanes is a discussion in which that's going to be folded into. So absent any other concerns about that, I just wanted to get your head nod that you're number one aware, and number 2, okay with still promoting the express lane model.
Yes, we have to do something, Commissioner Savas. And as you have reiterated and others here at this dais have said, there's no other tolling model in the entire country that tolls all lanes at the same time. There's always, like you say, an express or managed lane. Thank you very much for your work on that. I appreciate it. Last night was the celebration of Patriot Day, the Remembrance Day for 9/11, and it is now codified by Congress as a day to remember what happened on 9/11. It was hosted by our local Oregon City VFW 1324. It was a very nice remembrance. I can't say a celebration, but it was a remembrance. And we had color guards from our local sheriff's department dressed in their, what do you call those uniforms? Dress uniforms, thank you. And the Oregon City Police in their dress, and we had a Navy officer in his dress whites, and it was very nice. We had a bagpipe, and we had 2 of our ROTCs present colors, and speeches were made, and we laid a wreath over there at the Circle of Honor, right behind the courthouse, right in front of the courthouse construction. And it was fairly well attended for being at 6 p.m. It was fairly well attended. People were great. A wonderful time, and I thank all the commissioners for attending. That's really all I have going forward today. Gary.
Commissioner West would like to speak.
Commissioner West.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I was really saddened that I could not make it to the Patriot Day celebration yesterday. I heard that it went well. Chair, thank you for your report. As the board knows, I had to take a sick day here. But I do want to make sure that we let everybody know that the Clackamas Addiction Recovery Summit starts tomorrow. We know that addiction, homelessness, and mental health issues is absolutely a priority, not just of the Board of County Commissioners, but of the state of Oregon and many municipalities and jurisdictions all up and down the West Coast and throughout North America. And so what we've done is we have convened some industry experts, medical experts, policy thought leaders from all over North America that are having very good outcomes where they're from, all the way from Canada and parts of the United States, to come and convene a summit here to help direct policy in this county. And I think that that is really pertinent right now because we've seen a lot of failed leadership, in my opinion, and lack of movement on this issue from the state legislature, from the governor's office, from the city of Portland, and other large counties. And we're trying to get outside the echo chamber and carve out a productive path and a way to address these issues in our county. And I am really excited about the summit tomorrow. I think we're going to get a lot of great information, inspiration, and confirmation about how we have been doing things well in Clackamas County. We have a lot of successes to be proud of also. And I think that we're trying to be visionary with a very difficult situation. So that is coming this week, and I know is going to be a topic of conversation. I don't know, Gary, if you could just, for those listening, let them know how they can even participate, listen in, or follow the summit over the next 2 days.
Gary.
Yes, so this is on the board's schedule and calendar, and it's posted on our county website on Wednesday, September 13th, 1 p.m. It's in the Development Services Building at the county in the main floor auditorium and on Zoom. So a person can attend in person or remotely. And then Thursday, September 14th at 9 a.m., also in the county's Development Services Building, main floor auditorium, in person and on Zoom.
And for information, I believe at least one TV station will be listening in. Just wanted to let you folks know that. Commissioner West, is there anything else?
Yeah, I'll just end with this as, as we have a lot of inputs on how to tackle this really persistent and chronic problem, I think it's important for the public and other leaders to see where Clackamas County is trying to get information from and guidance from so that we can really be innovative and creative in how we tackle this problem and how we're trying to really overturn every rock, look behind every corner to find good solutions that maybe have been undervalued here in the metro area. And I know our heart and our goal is to really help people find a pathway to long-term self-sufficiency and recovery. And I think that this is one of those great things that we've done in the last, 8 months to have Clackamas County be impactful in that space. So once again, I'll end with this. Please tune in and reach out to your county commissioners and our staff on how your thoughts and how you can also participate in helping lead Clackamas County in this direction.
Yes, Cindy Becker will be leading the conversation, commissioners. We're really not in a leadership role. Of course, questions are always welcome, but we're here to learn from the experts that we have brought in nationally. Just a little reminder on that. Thank you very much, Commissioner West, for mentioning that. Any further discussion? Seeing no further business before this commission, we are adjourned.